All right, sorry to be late. We'll call this meeting to order. And first thing we need to do is go around the table and introduce ourselves. I'm Holly Williams. I'm the chair. We'll go this way this time. We're going
towards
so after
you,
Dave,
Yolanda.
then you,
Yeah.
Yolanda.
So Dave Donaldson, Colorado Springs City Council Vice Chair.
Yolanda Avila, City Council, District 4, Colorado Springs.
Josh Palmer, County Engineer.
Ryan Phipps, City of Colorado Springs.
Andy Gunning, PPACG.
Jennifer Ivey, Legal Counsel to the PPRTA.
Rick Sonnenberg, PPRTA Program Manager.
Todd Dixon, Mayor Green Mountain Falls.
Roland Gardine, Mayor Pro Tem Callahan.
John Graham, Mayor, City of Manitou Springs.
Randy Helms, Colorado Springs City Council.
Okay, and I was waiting for Rick to sit down to count whether or not we had a quorum. Commissioner Gonzalez is here.
Here, thank you.
And is Commissioner Geithner on? No, not yet. Paul Bent from RAMA is here. And do we have any other voting members online?
Madam Chair, we do not.
Okay, thank you. And so that's a quorum. All right, good. First item is to approve the agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Second, John Graham.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? Okay, and is there any public comment online?
Madam Chair, I'll ask anyone who's online who would like to provide public comment to please indicate with the raise hand function. I will also say we did not receive any advance requests and we did not receive any submitted requests or submitted public comment. And I see no one online raising their hand.
Okay, so there's no public comment. Thank you. Item 4A is approval of the minutes from the February 14th, 2024 meeting. Everybody's had a chance to review them.
Yolanda Avila, move to approve.
Mayor Dixon, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And then we have the approval of the minutes from our special board meeting, maybe the first and last ever. That was a hard one to run. Can we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Yolanda Avila, move to approve.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Mayor Dixon, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
And Madam Chair, if I may interrupt, Commissioner Geithner has joined.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 5, the Citizens Advisory Committee Monthly Report.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Madam Chair. Jim Godfrey, Chair of the CAC. Meeting last week, City of Colorado Springs brought forth 4 contracts for consideration and review. Had a good discussion with all those and recommend approval of the city's contracts as presented. City of Colorado Springs also brought forward a line item transfer, moving money from the Fontenaro Bridge projects over to Mark Shuffle. Mark Shuffle is doing well ahead of schedule and progressing very well. And they don't need the money on the Mark Shuffle Bridge, on the Fontenaro bridges right now. And so we approve their request and make a recommendation to you. El Paso County, we had 3 contracts. I understand they've been modified down to 2. And good discussion on those, no issues, and recommend approval as presented. We did have a discussion on Powers North reimbursement, the project with Copper Ridge in that. And we had asked the city to provide us updates on the work being done on that because it's not clear to us. So we didn't have anything to approve. Gail and the city brought forth the the invoices they had paid to date. So we're just aware of how progress was coming on that. And we appreciate them responding to our request and providing that information. We also reviewed and make a recommendation to approve the 2024 annual report to the citizens that was in your packet. There's a lot of work that goes into that, and just like to publicly thank all the staffs that contribute to put that document together. It's a very useful document, and I think it tells our story to the public very well, and we need to do everything we can to distribute it and make it known. And the meeting was going really well, and we were going to get out early until Roaring Fork Transportation Authority subject came up. So what Roaring Fork is, that's the RTA from Glenwood Springs to Aspen, that runs the buses up that corridor. And they have been augmenting and providing housing for some of their drivers and buses for a long time. And they bought a motel and did some rehab on that work and asked the Department of Revenue to exempt them from paying sales tax on those building materials. And what they've asked us and the other RTAs, the other two RTAs plus us, is to support them in their fight, using that word literally, but to support them in their appeal of the Department of Revenue's refusal to reimburse them for the sales tax on those building materials. And so we had as the chair and the vice chair got a sense during our pre-meeting, we had quite a discussion on that of whether we should be involved, whether they should be doing housing, whether they shouldn't, and they're a public entity, should they be paying taxes at all? So we went the whole gamut. So I'm not sure. We did come up with a recommendation for supporting the other RTA. It was 11-4, 2 no votes, not 2 people didn't vote. No, 2 negatives and 4 people didn't vote. So there was 11, 2, and 4 on that issue. And so we'll let our recommendation, I guess, was to get involved, but and just support them in their effort against the Department of Revenue. So we'll see where your discussion goes. Anyway, that was the minutes from the CAC meeting, and I'm willing to take any questions.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, I'd be curious of the major points, pro and con on this,
So the pro discussion, I think, centered around public entities should be exempt. And they're another RTA, and we're going to support them. We don't have a dog in the fight. It doesn't affect us. We don't provide that housing. There's a lot of companies, as many of you know, provide housing for their employees up in that whole mountain area. It's very expensive. And so we understand the reasoning behind that. The question on the pro side was, let's support them because of those things. They've been having and doing this since around 2000 or so, the early 2000s. So it's not a new thing. And then the Department of Revenue was questioning them having housing at all and whether it fits into the RTA law. And the negatives were, we don't have a dog in the fight, and it's not our issue. Any other questions?
Okay. If there are there any questions online? No questions online. I can't see Commissioner Greitner. So I will entertain a motion to accept the Citizens Advisory Monthly Report.
I move that we accept the Citizens Advisory Report as presented. John Graham.
I'll second Mayor Dixon.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is our financial report. Lisa.
Corey, Finance Manager for the PPRTA. The financials I'm reporting are for the sales and use tax from January. We received $11,182,170, which was above budget by $538,749. So that's 5.1%. And if we look at January of 24 compared to January of 23, those receipts were $234,380 higher in 24 than 23. So that is 2.1% higher. And that's about all I got. Anyone have any questions?
Are there any questions on the financial report? Okay. That is an information item. So thank you very much, Lisa. Okay, item number 7, City of Fountain considering joining the PPRTA information item. Rick?
Madam Chair and Board, the City of Fountain expressed an interest a year ago about this time, and they went through an exhaustive process to advocate to their voters to join the PPRTA at last November's ballot. Unfortunately, it failed, and now the City of Fountain City Council is again considering beginning that same process for 2024 towards the goal of going to their voters again in November 24. Mayor Sharon Thompson is here if she would like to speak. But in your packet is Board Attorney Jennifer Ivey's draft timetable, similar to a year ago at this time, but updated for this year. Includes the various steps, one of which is going out for the PPRTA board to refer out to the current member governments their approval for City of Fountain to join. And we've, Jennifer has added either a month or two to that process in the middle of the year. But Jennifer's welcome to address the board, and the mayor is welcome to address the board as well.
Okay, I think did the mayor step out? Come on up, and then we'll have Jennifer tell us what the first 2 steps are so we know what's coming up. You have to push the red button. There you go.
Sorry. My name is Gordon Rick. I'm the Mayor Pro Tem of Fountain. I apologize for Mayor Thompson. She had a doctor's appointment and had to leave early. We are considering trying to join PPRTA again. Our attorney has contacted your attorney, and based off of their discussion, they felt the timeline was appropriate to bring this before your board for a recommendation and consideration. I would appreciate it if you would favorably consider us to become a member of this board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer, go ahead if you could tell us just the first couple steps so we know what to expect next month.
Yeah, as Rick mentioned, we did just move up the timeline a couple of months. So really the first step that would be anticipating coming to the board in April would be a resolution from the town, from Fountain, stating that they intend to join and would like to join. So bringing it to this board then does not have an obligation to take any action. What we've done in the past and what I've included in the timeline is that at our next meeting, we would then consider a resolution basically saying that this board is amenable to that and will help facilitate by referring it out to the member governments for their approvals. So those would be the 2 first steps. We moved those up a couple of months to provide more months for the member governments to consider, because we've had in the last couple of go-arounds some more considerations related to that. And so that's really the only change, and that's what we would anticipate bringing to you next month. Okay, are there any other comments?
This is an information item only, so everybody can think about it. Okay, it looks like Ryan's going to get to take the hot seat today with item 8A, the City of Colorado Springs. Oh, hang on. No? Okay, go ahead, Ryan, you're up. You're up. Unless Gail wants to take it from you. Yep.
I'll take it for the first four contracts. The City of Colorado Springs has four contracts to present today. The first one is for the Tut Boulevard Extension, Dublin Boulevard to Templeton Gap Road. This is a PPRTA A-list project. This is the second phase of the project. The first phase has already been constructed up to Vicky Lane. This would extend Tut Boulevard from Vicky Lane further north about 1,500 feet. Invitation for bid was issued back in January. We opened bids February 16th and received 6 bids. We're receiving more competitive bids these days. Our low bid was Elite Surface Infrastructure, and the city requests that the PPRTA board approve this contract with Elite Surface Infrastructure for $1,682,972.10.
Okay, you can go on to the next
Yeah.
one. Unless we have any questions. If we have questions, just raise your hand or interrupt me.
The second contract that the city has to present is for the our PPRTA crack seal program. An RFP was issued in 2021 to solicit crack sealing services. As a result of that RFP, the city selected 2 contractors. This request is specifically for the 2024 task order for the city's PPRTA crack seal program, which is a preventative maintenance operation to stop water intrusion and extend the lifespan of our roadways. The City of Colorado Springs requests that the board approve this task order with Seal Coat Solutions to provide the preventative maintenance citywide with a not to exceed amount of $1,200,000. Our third contract is a transit funded project. This is on-call concrete services with transit. We solicited a request for proposal for on-call concrete services in April 2023. We received 3 proposals and 2 contractors were deemed qualified and were selected. As a result, or the scope of this work is to provide rapid response concrete type services around ADA improvements, bus stop improvements, new bus stop installations, and other small concrete projects. The city requests that the PPRTA board approve this task order with both Lucky Dog Contracting and Alunic Enterprises, each with a not to exceed amount of $250,000. And then our fourth contract is for variable message boards. Earlier in January, the city solicited an RFP for these variable message boards. As a result, there were 4 vendors that proposed. 4 vendors were identified as qualified and selected. This is a citywide contract for variable message boards. It supports primarily operations and maintenance activities, and this would allow for our RTA programs to purchase VMS boards as needed through this contract. So the City of Colorado Springs requests that the PPRTA board approve these contracts. There's 4 of them: Wenco, All Traffic Solutions, Roadside Supplies, and Safety and Construction Supply.
Okay, are there any questions regarding the city's contracts?
Just one,
go
if I
ahead.
could. The last item we went over, there are no dollar amounts on it. Is there an estimate? Or why are there no dollar amounts?
It's a $0 task order based contract. So as services, or in this case, as equipment is necessary, they would solicit to the 4 vendors and go with the most cost competitive of the 4. A VMS board is going to be in the $15,000 to $30,000 range.
Okay. And how many do we anticipate purchasing?
I believe that we're looking at maybe 2 to 3. I can follow up on that if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions, I'll take a motion to approve these city contracts, the first 4.
I move approval of the four City of Colorado Springs contracts as presented. John Graham.
Yolanda second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, let's go on to the next city capital projects line item transfer. Gail.
Gail Servant with the City of Colorado Springs. Today I'm going to be going over our request for a line item transfer. The city is requesting that we move $10 million out of the UPRR bridge replacement that goes over Fontanero. We're proposing that we place that $10 million in the roadway safety and traffic operations program budget that we use for the purpose to be able to continue to fund our construction progress on Mark Shuffle Road, and then also to progress the design for Dublin Boulevard. This work that we're proposing to continue on with Mark Shuffle is all new work. It's not changes in cost to the work we've already contracted with. Kramer North America has been doing that construction work for us. They've been very efficient. Where in essentially we need more money to be able to keep the construction rolling from south up to the north area. The other thing that this would do is keeping them going would help us actually save money, because if we didn't have funds to keep them going through the last portion of 2024, they would have to demobilize, and then we would have to pay them to remobilize in 2025 when funds would become available. Also, what the Kramer contract is set up as a construction management, general contractor construction management, CMCG contract type. So one of the other things this team does is they help us with pre-construction activities. So they actually meet with our engineering team on a weekly basis to keep this project going as most efficiently and effectively as possible. The other reason why we're bringing the Dublin Boulevard work in for the engineering piece, it is a PPRTA 3A list project as well. Both of these that we're proposing to fund will be future PPRTA 3A list projects. Is that it's really that the extent of that runs from Peterson Road to Mark Shuffle. And we really want to view that as just another phase of the Mark Shuffle construction project. And we feel like we're going to get a lot more, again, efficiency on the construction and really provide relief for traffic operations and safety along the Mark Shuffle corridor. The last thing I'll mention on the UPRR Fontanero project, one is still, excuse me, still in engineering. Two, we had been putting monies aside to help with the siding bridge in that project. But we also have known and planned to use emergency bridge fund program to help that siding bridge, because the siding, even though it has to be done at the same time, is not really a portion of the A-list project, one. And then two, we anticipate having sufficient funds to complete the PPRTA 2 B-list projects. We've been in consultation with the PPRTA staff and understand where our mid-year supplemental appropriation would come in, and then what would be coming out of the board reserves at the end of 2024. So we know that would exceed, or we anticipate that exceeding well over $10 million. So those monies would be going back into the RTA 2 A-list in our CIP budget. So that's really just the overview of why we're asking for this line item transfer. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Are there any questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Donaldson.
Okay, I'll go ahead and go. I think Raleigh has one after, but I would just want to hear from the attorney on this line item transfer. Your opinion of this is
Are we talking
appropriate?
about, is it from 2 to 3? Is that what we're talking about, per to 2 monies?
We're not asking to do that. We're not
Okay.
talking about moving an RTA 2 money to an RTA 3. We're talking about moving RTA monies to a RTA A-list program, or RTA 2 A-list program. So it would still say in the RTA 2 bucket or CIP for.
I understand correctly, Gail. Correct me if I'm wrong. The line item transfer is from the UPRR line, that project, to the roadway safety and traffic operations approved project. And it's the city's contention that the Mark Shuffle project, that this is gonna be funding, falls under roadway safety and traffic operations, because there's roadway safety and traffic operations that need to happen there, and that's what the $10 million is going to be funding. And that is a PPRTA 2 voter approved project.
That is correct.
That makes sense. Mayor Pro Tem, what question did you have?
Thank you.
Yeah, we're trying to make sure we distinguish between any more advances on PERTA 3 money versus what's in PERTA 2.
Right. I think what Mr. Event was indicating was that then Mark Shuffle Road is then also a PPRTA 3 project. So then the funding would be picked up once we get to PPRTA 3 as a A-list project from PPRTA 3, but that was just foreshadowing.
Right, that is correct. And so these are really the funds that we need to be able to complete work that's in progress. Again, our contractor's been so efficient that I thought I was going to have money to get through all of 24. And as it turns out, to keep them going, we need additional funds. So, because it is a roadway safety and traffic operations issue, and we've used this program before to fund the work on Mark Shuffle, we're proposing to do that now. And you'll see, I mean, we anticipate bringing a task order for our engineer and for the construction contractors next month to be able to continue that work. One, and then as we get the 25 budget, I anticipate bringing another contract in December that will be heard right after the 25 budget to get the funding going for the rest of the construction contract for both Mark Shuffle and the Dublin Road piece.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of us like Mark Shuffle Road when we have to go over there. So any further questions? Okay, if there's no questions, I will entertain a motion to approve this contract or this line item transfer. Mr. Helms, would you move that?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, and
Mayor
a
Pro
second?
Tem Gardine, second, please.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that is passed. Thank you. Okay, Josh Palmer from the county.
Excuse me. Good afternoon, Josh Palmer, county engineer. The county actually has two contract items to request approval. The first that is in your packet, I'm actually going to withdraw. The CAC did approve and was going to make a recommendation to approve. Our plan had been to take advantage of the second year of our 3-year contract, renewing contract with HCD for $4 million to continue our annual concrete maintenance program. The contractor has since decided that they can no longer honor the initial unit prices, and we've been unable to come to an agreement on reasonable unit price increases. So we're going to go back out to bid, re-advertise this project. So you'll probably see that not in April, but within in May. So we'll advertise here probably next week, and then the 4-week turnaround or so. So I'm actually withdrawing the first item there. So we do have two. The first would be the railway grade crossing signal installation agreement with BNSF Railway Company for the Security Widefield and Fontaine intersection project. A little bit of background on this. This is for $187,977. And background on this request is that when we started design for this project in 2019, we believed and we were told by BNSF and PUC that we could use the existing infrastructure as for the preemption. So the preemption is basically the coordination and interaction between our signal and the at-grade crossing signal for the railroad. When we got to construction in 22, we realized, well, it's been 3 years and like things happened, criteria has changed. The railway's criteria had changed. We also discovered that we had, since 2002, been essentially sharing a conduit with CDOT. CDOT had come in 2002 with a 85 and Fontaine project, and things had got improved out there. And so not only do we have to abide by the railway's new criteria, we also have to bifurcate and have our own conduit that connects our infrastructure with the railways. So this agreement is essentially a contract between El Paso County and the railway to purchase and install the necessary equipment. And in most cases, we're not allowed to touch the railway's equipment ourselves, so we have to pay for them to do it. So this agreement is essentially a contract for $187,977 to BNSF Railway Company. The second item, is a property acquisition request on the Beacon Light Road project, which is a PPRTA 2A list project in the amount of $340,000 to Interstate 25 properties. And this is necessary property acquisition and easements along the east side of Beacon Light at the south end of the project limits. And this should be the last minus the friendly condemnation with Douglas County and the conservation north of Beacon Light that we are assured is probably no more than a few weeks out. But as far as regular property acquisition, this should be the last that we'll see. The design for the project is complete and we're ready to go as soon as we can complete all the necessary property acquisition. So those are the two contracts that the county has to request approval today. And we'll answer any questions you may have.
Okay, go ahead, Jennifer.
So in the BNSF contract, I had a chance to chat with Josh just briefly before the meeting. I imagine that the county is asking for approval of this because they'd like the PPRTA to be the payor on the contract, but we are notably not a party to it. So I understand this is also a bit time sensitive. So if the board was amenable, my recommendation would be to approve the agreement subject to revisions acceptable to legal counsel. I don't have any problems with the agreement, just that we're not a party to it. So I'll reach out to the county attorney and work on that immediately if that's okay with the board.
That is fine. Any other questions? Okay, so since this is Beacon Light Road 2 as well, I will move approval of the El Paso County contracts with the proposed amendment that legal counsel review the contract and work with our county attorney to make it appropriate for Pikes Peak RTA.
Randy Helms will approve, second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you. That one's approved. Okay, the transit services update. Lan.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, Land Rail Transit Services Division Manager. In your packet is our monthly report. I would like to go all the way to page number 53 in your packet under the transit highlight section. As you remember, we implemented a fall service change that went into effect on October 1st, 2023, and included in this packet are those changes. So after we implemented those service changes, we went back and thought, you know what, it would be good to report back to the board and see if those things are working. So I would like to go over a couple of those to highlight. One of the main goals of this spring service change was really to improve the on-time performance. As we mentioned before, it's not really, we're not seeing a full picture if we're looking at the ridership only. We have been looking at ridership, trips per hour / boardings per hour, and on-time performance is one of those factors that we do consider when we assess service improvements. So the first service change that we implemented was to implement or add a new route on the weekend from the downtown terminal to South Gate on Nevada corridor. So we added this service to really solve this on-time performance issue on the weekend because of the boardings. Since we implemented this change, the on-time performance improved on Saturday on Route 10, Route 11, and also on Sundays for Route 11. However, we did see on Route 10 on Sunday that on-time performance actually decreased. We don't know why that's happening, but we're looking into that situation. Some other examples are on Route 23, Route 34, and Route 37. the table below on page 57 lists the on-time performance changes on those routes. One thing I would like to point out is in your packet, we actually included the Route 34 bus stops at Union and Austin Bluffs interchange. We used the terminology of signal prioritization, which is not correct. It really is video detection that we are using. But since implementing these changes, we are monitoring, and seems like for the most part, it's working, it's improving. But for those abnormal decreases that we're seeing, we're looking into those. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do we have any questions on the transit report? All right. Thank you very much, Lan. We appreciate it. Okay. 9B, City of Colorado Springs monthly change order and property acquisition report. Go ahead, Ryan, unless Gail wants to. You're in the seat. You're in the hot seat. So Ryan.
Before you is the change order log and the real estate log. Let me know if you have any questions on any of the items.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, there being no questions, that's an information item. Item number 9C, City of Colorado Springs Powers North reimbursement update. Did we want Rick to talk about this, or I think the point was that we want to make sure that Pikes PPRTA has some accountability. Gail?
Colorado Springs. So as you recall, a few months ago, we entered into a reimbursement agreement with the Copper Ridge Metro District, PPRTA, El Paso County, and the City of Colorado Springs were also party to that. We started receiving the first statements from the Metro District, and it's underneath the IGA between the four parties. It is the city's responsibility to verify that the invoices that are received are allowable costs that are for future reimbursement underneath that agreement. But what we wanted to do is to be able to put together a summary so you knew where we stood as far as future reimbursements and obligations underneath that agreement. So statement 1 was submitted on February 14th. We did go through and approve that, submitted that to PPRTA, and then this is a running total of what is going to be the obligation in the future. So underneath this, if you look at the fourth column from the second column from the right, where it's got future PPRTA reimbursement, that there is a $474,056.72 reimbursement underneath that, what was submitted in the first statement. So just wanted this will be information only, and really, unless you have questions about it, just wanted to make sure you're seeing it, that we can let you know what's coming up in the future.
Go ahead, Councilmember Helms.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do we know, maybe you don't know this, an update on, are they on time? Are they ahead of schedule, behind schedule?
They well, that's to say they started off with an extremely aggressive schedule. They wanted to be done with that bridge in September.
Correct.
They are running about a month behind,
Okay.
just with the underground utilities. All that stuff's taking a lot longer right now. So they are looking, anyway, so they're behind.
Okay.
And if you want more specifics about
Yeah,
construction, we can catch up on it later.
Thank you.
Okay, and I do like this idea. So as far as the other two IGAs we have, I think it's just helpful to have informational updates as we incur the expenditures to keep track. So are you okay with that, Rick, just to get a monthly update on those?
Yes, Madam Chair, that'd be perfect. We will just receive these probably on a monthly basis through the end of the calendar year, and then Gail can propose how much we should pay in January or February or beyond. So these will just be filed as future payables, and then we'll have a handful of them and decide with Gail's input how much to pay in January, February, and beyond.
Yeah, and in fact, I think we might even have these summaries for you in through 25, because right now the construction contract alone is $16.5 million for the bridge.
Mhm.
And if you go and look with what the city and the county have projected in PPRTA 3 funding, we're only anticipating between 12 and $11 million being available in our 25 budgets. So we'll continue to accrue these costs and have the payout underneath this IGA. And then there is actually also the potential we're working right now getting the engineering going on the stretch that will run between Voyager and Interquest as well, which is also contemplated underneath the reimbursement IGA. So I anticipate Copper Ridge having a lot more outlay on funds in advance of the PPRTA being able to pay them back. So we want to make sure that we're keeping a good accounting of this and understanding what our obligations are going to be underneath the agreement.
Yep. It's better to get a monthly update than be surprised in January. So we appreciate it very much. Thank you. Okay, number 9D, El Paso County's property acquisition report. Mr. Palmer.
Similar to the cities, if you have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer. The only item you'll see on there is the aforementioned Beacon Light Road property acquisition request.
Thank you. Any questions on that? All right. 9E, quarterly reports from member governments. Rick.
Madam Chair, this is the for the fourth quarter of 2023. This is a report of the accomplishments, capital and maintenance for that quarter. It's an information item. It's a very thorough, very exhaustive. Be glad to take any questions. It's just an information item.
Okay. Are there any questions? And thank you all for the member government submitting this as well. Okay, now we'll get into the meat of the meeting. 10A legislative report did you want to start with that, Rick? I didn't know if Dan was going to be here.
If Dan's on, we could yield to his time if he's on.
He is not.
Email from Dan indicating he had to testify today. And of course, that came up as the meeting was starting. So he is not going to be able to join us likely. He did say that he didn't have anything really to highlight for the board today.
Okay. Anything else, Rick?
Just to amplify that, he has not shared anything with Andy, Jennifer, Lisa, and me regarding any bills that impact the PPRTA, but he's always looking out for on our behalf.
Okay, so we don't get to see his beautiful face today, so that is much appreciated. Let's continue with item 10A. There might be some more.
Yeah, in the my memo in the packet has a couple of items to more formally ask the board to approve delegations of the board chair and vice chair, the authority to act on urgent legislative items that fall between monthly board meetings. So that motion is contained in there if the board so chooses. Should we have conversation on that before we move to the second item?
I guess we'll entertain a motion for that. I think it's valuable, and I asked Commissioner Geithner, it's valuable for us to work quickly on that. Know that I'll probably be running it past Commissioner Geithner and our legislative staff because they're the experts. And so, but that's my responsibility. So let's do that as a motion. Does someone want to do item number 1 as a motion?
Madam Chair, before you start, Commissioner Geithner does have her hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Geithner.
Thanks. I just wanted to, just weigh in a little bit. As with most things, especially with a board that only meets once a month in the legislative cycle, we all know how quickly things move. So I do think this is a valuable tool to be flexible and be able to weigh in where necessary. I also think it is a big burden, quite frankly, on those who are on the committee because they're trying to, determine what the thoughts are of an entire board. And I think that can lead to some difficult decisions. So I'll just say I think it's a good idea to have this flexibility, but as the chair stated, I think trying to do the due diligence of checking in and making sure that they're making well-informed decisions is important in this process. And with that, I'd make the motion on this item.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second Mayor Dixon.
Okay, so we have a second, and just know with this as well that we'll make sure, now it's easy for me to reach out to Commissioner Gonzalez and Commissioner Geithner, but we'll make sure that we reach out to our small towns as well. And make sure that if there's something that's really going to be a problem, we'll get everybody on a Zoom call if we have to or something. So we'll make sure we get opinions on really urgent issues. So all right, we have a motion on the floor. Any more comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Letter 10B, the PPRTA 2024 annual report to citizens. Rick.
Madam Chair, if we could go back to the second item in legislative report.
I'm sorry, I was trying to skip over that one. Go ahead. That one's a little bit more confusing.
This item was discussed briefly at the November 8 board meeting, and just recently it came back up too late to go to the CAC meeting. So you do not have a CAC recommendation on this one. As you recall from the November 8 discussion, the RTA state law has several revenue sources, one of which is the 1 cent sales tax, obviously, that we use. One of the other ones is a 2% visitor benefit tax. That's the wording out of the statute, but locally we call it a lodging tax. And obviously we don't use that, but the CEO of CASTA, Colorado Association of Transit Agencies, raised this back in November and is now raising it again, asking for the several RTAs to support her in placing into a bill the revision to the RTA state law relative to the 2% maximum visitor benefit tax, because currently the wording in the state law says 2% visitor benefit tax maximum minus whatever any city or county is consuming in a local lodging tax. So if a city has a 1% and a county has a 1% and the RTA wants to do the lodging tax, then the city and county would have used up the 2% max and would leave nothing available for an overlapping RTA to go to its voters for a lodging tax. So what the CEO of CASTA is recommending is either an amendment to the RTA state law to have the 2% available to RTAs to go to their voters as a complete set aside, not subject to reduction by a city or county consuming the 2% max, or a complete removal of the 2% max for RTA's use to go to their voters. And she's asking for the several RTAs to provide support for her effort to change the RTA state law to a 2% set aside completely reserved for RTAs, or the visitor benefit tax and RTA state law to have no maximum. So she's asking, so I'm forwarding to the board how you want to handle this. Again, the PPRTA does not use a lodging tax, so it does not impact us. It's just, do we want to show support and allow more flexibility of the use of the RTA revenue source called visitor benefit tax, and allow more flexibility to other RTAs via a revision of the state law.
Do we know if any of the other RTAs use a lodging tax?
Excellent question. I do not know. Sorry.
All right, let's have some discussion. Mayor Graham.
Madam Chair, I would mention the city of Manitou Springs does have a 2% lodging tax. So given my understanding of this, I would, on behalf of Manitou Springs, I would oppose this because we would either, we'd lose an important source of revenue to us, or else I'm afraid we'd just be pricing ourselves out of the market. If you go to get a motel room, you're a little over 11% now tax, which is, I think, pretty rough. Thank you.
So the county does not have a LART tax. Does anyone else want to speak?
And the city does. It's 2% on lodging, 1% on rental cars. So the way things are now, PPRTA couldn't impose a visitor revenue tax for revenue for PPRTA. But I also agree with what Mayor Graham is saying, and my concern about changing this is with either of the two changes that are proposed or suggested, we're essentially allowing an increased tax on visitors to cities. So I just don't support that in general. I would leave it as it is.
Okay, I would probably lean that way as well, primarily because we just approved ours and we didn't use it, but also because, as Jennifer says, it's a bad idea to open up RTA statute, right? See, I'm getting good at quoting her. Any other comments? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I do not want to open this up for all the reasons that have been discussed.
Go ahead, Yolanda.
Thank you. Yes, I brought this up in our meeting yesterday with the mayor, and I wasn't really clear about it. And so, like, we do have a 2% tax on the city and a 1%. And so it sounded to me, I wasn't sure, maybe Jennifer can help me out, that 2% would go to the RTA instead of to the city for the other usages or the other grants that we put out there. So yeah, it was really concerning to me when I read about this, and I had a conversation with Rick about it a month ago or so, but I'm like, in my head, I'm kind of confused. So
Yeah, I was a little bit confused too. I think it would be an addition, right, Jennifer?
I'm going to defer to Rick because I'm going to be fully honest. I did not spend a lot of time mapping out the different permutations of this since we don't actually use this tax. But Rick understands completely what these options are.
He does. He is the RTA expert. Go ahead, Rick.
I'm just slow on the uptake, Rick.
I think Councilmember Donaldson summed it up. In our particular case here, if the PPRTA wanted to use any of the visitor benefit tax, since the city has consumed the entire 2% max that's available to the RTA, there wouldn't be any room for the PPRTA to implement anything. So there'd be no purpose to go to the voters and ask for anything because the 2% bucket is full. The city has used it all up. Now, with regard to Yolanda's concern, I have no information, and I assume there would be zero risk that anything would be transferred from city or county to an RTA. It's simply a revenue source of up to 2%. That any RTA can go to their voters and ask the voters to approve, only for the portion that a city and a county hasn't consumed in the 2% bucket. And in our case, the 2% is totally consumed, so there's nothing left to go to the voters, and nothing transfers.
Nothing in addition to, like, it's not
Yes.
2% addition to.
There's nothing
1,
in
2,
addition
3,
to.
4, 5%. Okay.
And I would probably go with Mayor Graham and say that we oppose it because our choices are oppose, monitor, or support when it comes to legislation, right?
Yeah,
Or
it's
amend.
it's not introduced legislation. I think this is just
Okay.
a call from CASTA for support for one of their proposals. So at this point, we're not taking an official a position on a bill,
hmm
but I think you could indicate to CASTA what the position might be.
Yes, and I think that that's what we do, indicate to them, they're not in a formal motion. Go ahead, Mayor Dixon.
Yeah, I'm curious if this would have an impact on communities that are kind of limited through Tabor. In other words, if you're receiving, say, a certain dollar amount now, and we can't get the money through RTA, but we kind of swap that and are able to get that 2% over through RTA, does that then benefit the communities that are Tabor capped?
It's probably something we have to look at when the bill comes out.
You're not following? Yeah. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with where things are going. I was just curious.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I mean, based on the discussion, Rick can correct me if I'm wrong, I understand that CASTA is asking for a reaction from the PPRTA. Not really listed as one of the options here, but an option that might be amenable to the board based on discussion here is to say the PPRTA does not avail itself of the visitor benefit tax, therefore doesn't really have a position on the options, but prefers not to be opening up the RTA statute when it's unnecessary.
Yeah, I think that's kind of we don't have a dog in this fight position.
Yeah, can we capture that?
Yeah, can you email me to me?
Yeah, if you could capture that, and that's kind of what we will tell them. So I think obviously if we were to take advantage of this, we'd have to go out to the voters, and I don't think any of us are clamoring to go out to the voters again anytime soon. So.
All right. If I.
Go ahead.
What they're offering, though, is for us to get a dog in the fight by revising the language to say that, hey, on top of whatever you're getting from LART, that doesn't matter. You can then have a 2% tax for a visitor benefit tax inside the RTA, the PPRTA, or others. So that's the choice we're given is, hey, do you want to be party to this and try to create another revenue stream? Because ours is consumed by the LART tax, but we could say, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's get another 2% for RTA. I don't support that, but that's what this is offering.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Just to clarify, that RTAs generally would have another revenue stream. This RTA specifically, the PPRTA, would have to go back to the voters, as was mentioned. So.
Right.
And I think that we're ready to just stay where we're at. And then maybe in future years, but I think it does price us out of the market. Rick, did you have any more comments?
No, Madam Chair, I'll just rely on Jennifer Ivy to provide me her wonderful sentence for the minutes and for my response to the CASTA CEO.
Okay. All right. So that finishes up item 10A. Item 10B, the PERTA report to citizens. Rick.
This is the annual report to the citizens. We each January 1st, we ask the 6-member governments to start preparing their narrative and pictures of their accomplishments from the prior calendar year. And as you can see, we have very thorough reports from the 6-member governments, so some good pictures. There's also a project schedule on the reports pages 10 and 11, not in 10, 11 of your total packet, but in the report itself. And on the back cover, we have the front cover that we chose Black Forest Road with the Volmer intersection looking a little northeast. And that was provided by Gail and her staff. And the back cover shows the projects that are completed, under construction or in design. So it's very similar in format to what we've been providing for many years. And we'll, if the board approves, we'll send it over to the City of Colorado Springs Print Shop and pay them for printing of 1,500 copies, and then post this electronically on the PPRTA website, and pay for advertisements in the 9 newspapers, directing the public to the website to see the annual report. So the CAC and PPRTA staff recommend board approval. And Commissioner Geithner, we're still availing ourselves of if you can make it over here to the board room and meeting room. Jared can take your picture and he can Photoshop it into the group picture. Maybe there's a better term for that.
Will be better than the Prince and Princess of that.
So if we'll hold off from the printing if you're available, and probably not tomorrow in the snowstorm, but sometime next few days, maybe Monday, Tuesday, if you can let me know, we'll schedule, get your photo, and then we can add you to the group photo of the board, and then we'll send it over to the city print shop.
Well, I'll just say you guys have been overly kind and accommodating. If there's time to do that next week, I will surely do that. But I'm also not overly concerned and would be fine with you going to print. So don't worry on my behalf. I will not be offended if it goes to print without me.
Well, we're a month ahead of our normal schedule. This is our optimal schedule, but we can certainly afford to wait a week in order to add you. So if you'll just check your schedule and let me know, we can, Jared and I can schedule that down here and take your photo and add it, and then we'll go to the print shop.
Okay, with that, are there any comments or changes, other changes to the report? It looks very good. Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve item 10B.
Mayor Dixon also move.
Randy Helms, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, 10C, the request from Roaring Fork Transportation Authority to support for its appeal of a Department of Revenue sales use tax denial of exemption for materials used for employee housing facility. Who wants to take this one on? Rick?
I will start at least, and Jennifer can help me out. So there are 4 other large RTAs that are in ski areas, tourist destinations. Roaring Forks RTA is Glenwood Springs serving Aspen, Eagle Valley Transportation Authority serving Vail, Avon, Eagle County, Gunnison Valley RTA serving Crested Butte, and San Miguel Authority, one of the newer ones, RTA serving Telluride. The first one, Roaring Forks RTA, was first voter approved in the year 2000. As far as I know, they are 100% mass transit, meaning buses, and they have quite a number of bus drivers. And as you know, in ski resort areas, the costs for housing are very high. So they have been providing various options for housing assistance for their bus drivers for a number of years. In 2020, 2020 or 2022, they purchased last couple of years, they purchased a former motel and have used that for their bus drivers' housing. Recently, they wanted to renovate the former motel, and they put in their bid specs for their construction contractor. They did not put in any sales or use tax on the building materials for the renovation of the housing units. The construction contractor did not factor that into his expense, but the Department of Revenue chimed in and said that sales and use tax that are typical to be applied to building materials statewide needed to be applied to the renovation of the former motel, now the residence housing owned by the RTA. And the RTA, as we are, is a government. So it's a government-owned housing complex. So the Roaring Forks RTA advocated to the Department of Revenue that not only were they a government and therefore tax exempt, but for the subsidized housing for the bus drivers, they couldn't attract enough bus drivers to drive the buses. Therefore, they could not provide the regional transportation mass transit service. So their advocacy is a set of dominoes. But for the housing, they can't get the bus drivers, and the bus driver are needed for the buses, and the buses are needed to provide the service to the public. So that's the RFTA advocacy to DOR, is that the former motel is an essential piece of the providing the regional transportation service. Now, DOR's position is that sales and use tax are due on the building materials and the renovation to the tune of $125,000. So Roaring Forks has, through their attorney, has submitted an appeal to DOR to go up the chain of command from the staff member who determined that the use tax was due on the building materials. And Roaring Forks has sent out to us, and particularly the other three tourist area RTAs, request for letters of support to DOR to support Roaring Forks' appeal to allow the building materials to be tax exempt. The other three, the Eagle Valley, Gunnison Valley, and San Miguel, have all forwarded emails. I was copied on their emails back to Roaring Forks saying that they will support the appeal, the Roaring Forks appeal to DOR to allow the building materials to be tax exempt. So, but in our case, I felt this needed to go to the board, and so we sent it to the board chair and vice chair, and board chair and vice chair said, yes, this needs to go to the full board for discussion. Now, as you heard from Jim Godfrey, the CAC discussed this, and their vote was 11 in favor of supporting the Roaring Forks appeal, 2 against, and 4 abstaining. So that's where we are.
Okay, so we need to discuss this item. I will point out that CDOT also has to have housing up in the mountains for their truck drivers. So I'm really curious as to whether CDOT's getting a bill for their housing they're building. But we need to know whether or not we want to support Roaring Forks or just say we don't have a dog in this fight, which is the phrase of the day, I guess. Randy.
Couple questions, Madam Chair. Number one, why would we want to get involved in this? Is there a reason that we would want to? And number two, is there a risk of it? Are we risking anything by supporting this?
The why get involved would be we don't need to, but the why would be just general support for our fellow RTAs around the state. But there's no strong reason to risk. I don't think, I can't imagine that the DOR would take some vengeance on us. I don't know that they could do anything to harm us, but That's just I guess, a value judgment if DOR would feel vengeful because we're contributing or supporting an appeal.
My final question would be, is there anything that we can look to in the future that we would want the other RTA support in?
I can't think of any right now. All of the other, let's see, I think State Representative Larry Liston at the time in 2009, now State Senator, wanted to add a up to 5 mills property tax as an optional revenue source to the state law, and the board asked me to join him at committee and support it, even though the board at the time, and I've never heard in the 19 years the board have any inclination that the board wants to pursue a property tax, 1 mill up to 5 mills, but we did support him in adding that revenue source for all RTAs in the state law. And in fact, the Telluride RTA did go their voters and after 2009, and they are using the property tax option. But back to your question, we're using the 1 cent sales tax. I haven't ever heard of any potential infringement on that or any bill that might harm that. So I can't think of any option where we would need to ask others for support for us.
Okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts? Is there a time in the next 10 years where we might have to house our bus drivers? I don't think so. I think we're still managing to get some. So go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How long have they actually give this assistance to the drivers? Is it just a brand new thing, or is it been going on for quite a while?
I think they've been giving some sort of assistance. I'd have to dive into their backup. I don't remember. I think they mentioned they've been doing some sort of assistance for several years. Only recently have they purchased the former motel. Maybe I'll try to read their email to me, and maybe I can come up with that answer here in a minute.
Go ahead, Randy.
One more question. Do any of the communities that would they be infringed upon by losing the sales tax on this? Do we have any? Has there been any feedback from the communities that would be losing the sales tax?
Excellent question. Not that I've heard.
Go ahead, Councilmember Donaldson.
Just a couple thoughts is PPRTA doesn't provide housing for bus drivers, so we don't have expertise or knowledge. It's not our issue. That's one way to look at this. And another is, it kind of goes to that question we struggled with before, is when we were talking about EV chargers for private vehicles, is this what citizens would think RTAs are supposed to provide with the funds that are raised by the tax? Because you could go farther back to say, well, we can't get bus drivers unless we give them vacations also. So we're going to fund vacations for the bus drivers, and we can't get bus drivers unless we have these other benefits. So how far away from paying their salaries, paying for the buses, the fuel, the roads, do we go? And I think that's something to think about also.
Go ahead, Rick.
To answer Mayor Pro Tem Gardine's question, on the very last page of this item, the CEO of Roaring Forks says quote, "We either lease or own units we need and have been providing housing for employees since before Roaring Forks was formed in the year 2000.
Wow. I would take a different argument. Let's see, and I don't know where I'm coming down on this, but if CDOT's having to build and provide housing, it makes me wonder if they're also doing this same thing to CDOT as well as Roaring Forks, because you can't just target out Roaring Forks. And so I know no one here knows what's in CDOT's mind, but it would be interesting to know. But I don't know on this one. I really don't. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just going to point out, my reading of the information was that DOR is taking the position that it's not sales tax exempt because housing is not a purview of an RTA. So I'm not familiar enough with CDOT and its legislation and rules to know how that impacts them. But to Councilmember Donaldson's point, I think part of the question is housing really part of the RTA law? And I think, the RAFTA made a good faith argument of, well, we're supposed to provide regional transportation systems. Part of that is a bus. Buses need to have drivers. Drivers need a place to stay if we want to bring bus drivers in our particular situation. I can also see the flip side of that coin, which is this is private housing. This is not a public facility. Like, I can't use that facility. Only the person you're providing it to is. And so there's a public-private tension here as well. My 2 cents based on the conversation we've had here and at lunch is, again, I think, the board could take a position of the PPRTA doesn't have employees and hasn't faced this. While we sympathize with your position, we don't know enough about this to provide support.
Randy.
I follow what Jennifer just said. I don't think we should get involved in it, but that's my 2 cents.
Okay, I might probably recommend we stay out of it at this point in time after our heavy duty argument about EV chargers in the past 2 months. Just because it's not in the statute itself. And then if it ends up going through the court system, we may have to look at it more seriously. Because it makes me wonder if at some point this one ends up going into court and then we're looking at a potential opening of state statute to change it, to add in housing for bus drivers. So, how does everybody feel? Are we ready to just say that we are, how do we say it politely?
I think our attorney said it well. We don't have enough background and information to.
So I think if the board wants to take a action, it would be to direct staff to respond to RAFTA, noting that the PPRTA does not have employees, therefore is not faced with this predicament. So while we sympathize with their position, we're not able to take an official stance on their appeal.
Okay, Randy, do you want to do that as a motion?
Randy Helms, I'll make that as a motion to accept our wording as just described.
Okay.
Mayor Dixon, second.
All right, we've got a second from Commissioner Gonzalez. All right, any further comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. So we will tell them we appreciate them keeping us posted on that issue, but we're not ready to take a position. Item number 11, agenda topics for next meeting. Does anyone want to add in any agenda topics for next meeting? Okay, item 12, communications. Awesome, everybody stay safe in this storm. So item number 13, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay, we've got a motion
Second.
and a second from Council Member Avila and Randy Helms. Okay, so we are adjourned. Thank you.